Welcome back to the Overplayed podcast, a home of sports and sports gaming in your ear each and every Thursday. My name is GoodGameBro, and I'm just here to remind you, if you haven't given us a 5-star rating, first of all, what's wrong with you? Second of all, you might be below 5 feet tall. And then lastly, you might have some little sausage fingers. If you haven't hit the review button yet, we got a couple people that have hit reviews this week. Mills may or may not have threatened them to do so, but I'll make sure we shout them out this week as well, because Mills would never give you credit. But me personally, I would give you credit. But again, I'm GoodGameBro, and the man that couldn't figure out how to, get his headphones to work earlier today is my wonderful co-host Mills. Mills, how you doing?
All right, for those of you who don't know, we were on the Bro Man podcast this week, another great podcast on the Rare Drop Network, and we had to mute a piece of software so that we weren't echoing, and unfortunately, when you hit 40 years old, you get to a point where technology just passes you by, okay? I forgot that I muted the site we were on, so there was no echo, and I sat here and rebooted my computer 3 times in an attempt to figure out why I could not hear GGB. Now, most of you will understand not being able to hear GGB is actually a positive, but when it comes to the podcast, I gotta hear him to be, if I'm gonna roast him, I gotta know what I'm roasting at the time, so... we made it work. Okay, so now it works. I can hear him. He can hear my lovely voice. It's a very dangerous situation.
I don't think you know what lovely means. It's probably been a while since you've heard lovely in any way that's positive. No one would describe you as lovely, obviously, Mills. But speaking of lovely, we have some lovely people here I want to shout out really quickly. That you may or may not have threatened to leave reviews here. So we've got Jake Crowder. This is a great podcast hosted by great streamers, A+ content. Okay, he somehow gave you a compliment. It is what it is. Right. Matty Ice 0824. This is great dudes, awesome to listen to. Both carry each other very well.
Wait, what?
One of us carries the other more than the other one,
Listen, these are people trying to be nice to you, just so you know. These are people that don't want to trash you because they realize just how much I get you every week.
I'm looking for some Mills libel or slander.
Just read the third one.
How do you... I should have tried to figure out how to pronounce this. Cheap Ludes? Cheap Ludes. Oh my God, I can't read.
Cheap. Oh my God. Did you just try to shape... What? It says Cheap Ludes.
I thought it was someone's name.
It is his name. It's his YouTube channel. He's an NBA 2K My Team creator. Fantastic dude, by the way.
Listen, I'm sorry. Don't hate me.
There's a review. What did he say?
He says, great podcast. Some of my favorite dudes on the internet could use more Joe Ingles and Tracy McGrady hype, but other than that, perfect. Mills is trash. That was their words, not mine.
Okay, you really didn't add on that. By the way, Joe Ingles' best release in NBA 2K21, don't at me. That's why he included that, because I will swear by that release.
I'm more of a Ray Allen guy on release, but Ingles' releases are bad.
You would be.
Our jump shots are very similar. Mine and Ray Allen, 2 of the greatest shooters in basketball history. It's not a big deal. Mills, what have you been playing?
It's funny because my game is much like Joe Ingles, so my game is very much like Joe Ingles. So there we go. They called me Big Fundamental.
I thought they called you Mick Foley. But anyways, Mills, what have you been playing this week?
I got all back. And speaking of NBA 2K21, I'm all back in with NBA 2K My Team. They opened up season 5. It is a comic themed season where they have Golden Age and Modern Age heroes, and it looks like the end bosses. Spoiler alert! Wait, fast forward 10 seconds. Looks like they might be versions of Zion Williamson for the Modern Age and Michael Jordan for the Golden Age. And they put out this really awesome Shaq that has like 90 speed. So when he brings the ball up court, he literally turbos by everybody. Yes, say it again. 90 speed Shaquille O'Neal. Listen, I don't make the game. I don't make the ratings. I just own with it.
I actually played a lot of 2K21 My Team this past week because I was watching your streams and watching your rants about, Amethyst and everything, which they fixed your Amethyst gripe, by the way. There's no wiggle on Amethyst anymore.
Yes.
But I matched up against this dude in Unlimited. I don't even know what mode it was. I honestly forgot. But I played a dude and I got literally destroyed by Kevin McHale. He did this thing where he would like full speed sprint to the baseline and then do this weird 360 reverse drop step pivot and then dunk on every single person on my team. And I was so mad because he dropped 44 points. 44 of his 60 whatever points he had were from Kevin McHale, and I lost by 1. And I was salty. I told him GG though, but I hate Kevin McHale now. I'm sorry.
That Kevin McHale card was the unlimited reward, I believe, for last season. It's a really fantastic card. And yeah, there are a couple abilities, especially guys that have like post spin technician as a badge. That's a badge that's actually slept on a lot because most my teamers are 3-point or dunk. I mean, it actually, it's kind of what it's, it's funny. And we'll talk about this on another podcast someday. It really is funny that NBA 2K has always been kind of when you're playing it casually, it's always, 3 points and dunks. Like that's what video game, it's not even just NBA 2K, all video game basketball. And it's really the people that played that when they were kids have evolved into like what the NBA is now. The NBA is now, obviously we know better than that, but the NBA right now is viewed as being a lot of ISO ball, a lot of drive and dunk or 3-point shot. So, I mean, there is something to that. I wonder if that's kind of the way, if video games have had that kind of a effect on the way the actual NBA goes now.
I mean, I don't think you're too far-fetched with that. Think about how many NFL players or college players we've heard that back in the days of NCAA football, for example, learned their offense through the game. Like not every play is mapped 1-to-1, but they learned a lot of like concepts. A lot of kids talk about in the NFL, or younger kids now especially, are saying like, I learned to read cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, how to find different beaters for that from playing Madden or NFL 2K like way back in the day or whatever. Like I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that games influence sort of, true life at some point. But I'm a mid-range guy, and every time I hit a mid-ranger in 2K, I'm like, still lives, but it's few.
Dude, I'm an old school Spurs fan. I love the mid-range game.
Oh yeah,
that's what they were built on with the old. Yeah, damn right. That being said, what are something you've been looking forward to, or you've seen this week that's really affected you outside of my team greatness? By the way, I told you one of the reasons I play my team is to show off that you don't need the latest cards, and I was spanking people with 3 amethysts on triple threat online. Just so we're clear.
Yeah. Okay. Mills out here touting his skills. Imagine that. Wow.
Somebody has to.
What I'm disappointed by this week. Oh yeah, true. What I'm disappointed by this week, though, is the cancellation of Anthem next. Anthem is a game that I had a soft spot for because I was lucky enough to be flown out to, I think it was Austin at the time, to do an early capture event for that game. So I got to be one of the first few people or content creators to like play it and experience it. And it was such a unique thing. And I think, a lot of us left that event, or even when we talked to EA to get feedback, and we said like, the mechanics are incredible. Flying is incredible. It feels so cool. But it's just missing like that scratching the itch factor, right? Like the end game. I can see myself playing it for like 10, 12 hours and then being like, there's no reason to go back to it, right? There's no real like the end game loot pool sort of situation didn't really feel like it was ever really done well. Obviously, the game didn't do super well when they actually dropped it. People had a lot of issues with those similar factors, and then they were, working towards Anthem 2.0 or Anthem Next. And there was a rumor, I believe, by a journalist who's polarizing, but he had sort of dropped out that they were at a point where they were saying like, hey, we're either going to have we're having a preview of leadership, and it'll either be received well and we'll keep pushing, or it'll be a call to essentially cancel that version of the game. They ultimately announced today that they are no longer doing anything with Anthem outside of sort of live content, sort of like updates here and there. And it just sucks because it's one of those games that has so much potential, and I can see it being such an incredible game. But it would just, I guess, take them too long to get there. So they're putting on the back burner or canceling it, and you hate to see it.
Yeah, and Anthem, for the same place with me, I had known the community manager, well, actually both the community managers at one point. And I knew some of the dev team. The game it was essentially a looter shooter where you got to be Iron Man. All right, and you got to be different versions of Iron Man. It was a fantastic, like, when it comes to looter shooters, it was different. It was unique, and it just didn't have the content behind it, and it was a little buggy, but it was so gorgeous to play. Like the metal flashed when you flew around, the effects from some of the weaponry. But you're right, like Endgame was really never developed. It was a very looter shooters tend to be a little tedious at endgame at times as well, but this was really like the same thing over and over again. And I was looking forward to Anthem Next. I really wanted Anthem Next as a fan of looter shooters. Hell, I'm even still playing Marvel's Avengers just because like I love that grind. And I really do feel bad. It looks like those devs are going to be, no one was laid off from what I understand, just so we're clear. It looks like those devs are going to be moved on to either the new Dragon Age project that's going on right now that was announced, I think, last EA Play, or they're moving on to the Mass Effect remaster that's coming out in May, which we talked about on a previous podcast. Yeah, we're definitely hyped for that. So, yeah, dude, it's unfortunate. I think Anthem had way more to give than it was allowed to, and I know for a fact that dev team put a ton of heart and soul into that, not just technical ability, like real heart and soul to get Anthem Next off the ground, and they're just not going to be realized. It's unfortunate, man.
Yep, agreed. It's up there for me with Star Wars 1313 of games that, well, I guess Star Wars 1313 never technically released, but it's one of those, could have been. But that being said, we've got a lot to cover this week. Mills, we're going to talk about Tiger Woods and the injury that happened with him. Thankfully he's, healthy and safe to a degree. Obviously sustained some injuries. We'll talk about the All-Star weekend and some snubs. We got maybe some crazy opinions there. Tom Brady literally being Terminator. This man is never going to retire. We've got stuff with Madden, Super Mega Baseball 3, Notre Dame doing some interesting things, and how we weigh in on that. But let's jump into it, Mills. What do we got here?
All right, so starting off with this week in sports, we're going to talk about Tiger Woods. Obviously, he had a huge car accident. They were talking about how he was, I think, 250 feet off the median when they found the vehicle. I think that was the number. I'm shooting from the hip here. There were a lot of people worried about him. We still don't have all the details about cause, so we're not going to get too far into that. I've seen a lot of speculation. Internet, do me a favor, stop speculating on things you don't know. Nothing good comes of that. But there has been an update from his official social media accounts. He is rehabbing okay. He is coming back okay. It was a huge scare. He did flip his car multiple times over. They had to use the jaws of life to get him out. Scary situation, man, for a guy that every time he's on that comeback trail. I mean, he's played really well over the last couple of years. Not obviously Tiger Woods well, but really well in terms of the field. You still go Tiger Woods versus the field. It's the best bet to make. But it looks like he's going to be okay, and hopefully, if all prayers are answered, we'll see him back out on the golf course soon.
Absolutely. I think, it's a great point you bring up about, I think with Tiger Woods, he's I would say 98% beloved individual. There are obviously reasons why people can have, opinions on him. And I don't think anyone can necessarily say they're maybe wrong for that. But I think he is one of the more complex individuals in sports, especially when you're talking about on the pantheon of like our GOATs, right? Of the greatest to ever play in a particular sport. Of those figures, he is one of the most complex. And that's why I'm thinking of like even a Michael Jordan, who is significantly more complex than a lot of people. You can argue that Tiger is significantly more complex than him. I mean, that's an episode on the podcast we could always talk about. But I think the great things for me is that I saw the sheriff came out, or the deputy came out today, actually a couple hours ago, saying that they did not have anything from like a toxicology or a DUI standpoint. So they were saying that it was,
thank God.
Yeah, that was my biggest fear. But they said they deemed it as being windy roads, a lapse of judgment, and then hit the median. And then it obviously sort of snowballed being an SUV there. The biggest thing to me, I think that I sort of took from this is like, we're a little over a year out from, the death of Kobe and Gianna and obviously everyone else that was sort of in the helicopter there. What drove me nuts is seeing people making ridiculous comments. And one that I sort of called out was, KFC Barstool, who just was calling it like a hoax and saying that he was partnering with the Los Angeles Police Department to do something. And I just, if you're someone who, when there is a traumatic or tragic event that happens to someone, and if your first response is to be a cynic and to say, something negative regarding that, if your first response isn't anything other than, I hope they're okay, whether you love or hate that person for whatever variety of reasons, if your first response is not, That sucks. I hope they're okay, or something to that degree. You have a problem. Like that is a breakdown you have to have in your brain of like, you should never wish ill on somebody, whether you again like or love or have any relationship to that person whatsoever. Like, you should not wish harm or anything on someone. Like Tiger Woods, again, like any person, has his faults, but he's got kids, he's got family. Like I mean, Mills, you talked about the jaws of life removing him from the car. Like, they don't just willy nilly like bring those out. Like, his car, I'm looking at a picture of his SUV now. They're saying that he was lucky to be alive, and so he's got. From what I was reading earlier, he's got a steel rod inserted into his tibia or his fibia. I can't remember which bone in sort of the shin area. He's got obviously significant amounts of rehab he's going to have to do. They said that he'll probably never be back to 100%.
Yep.
I don't think Tiger Woods has been playing at 100%. I think he's been probably like maybe 80, 75% the past couple of years, because it's maybe the max he's been able to get to with back and the knee injuries and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I just want him to be able to live a normal, healthy, functional life again, be able to play with his kids. And we've seen Charlie as of last October, November, playing with Tiger, and how heartwarming that was to see him wearing the red shirt and everything like that. Yeah. Like, I would love nothing more than Tiger to have a couple of years off, spend time with his kids, especially Charlie as he's pursuing golf, even if he doesn't want to pursue golf or whatever. And then maybe he gets on the senior PGA in a couple of years and he's able to sort of compete and go after the Masters record from there. I'm okay with that. We've seen enough from Tiger. He does not owe us anything professionally. It's selfish for us to want anything additional from him, but like, I just want him to live a natural, healthy life again.
And it's unfortunate. We talk about social media, and it ends up being the cell phone high school game. Like, if you have a story in high school and you have a cell phone, the first thing you want to do is call all of your friends because you have the story. So it ends up turning into who can make the most outlandish statement, or the statement that gets the most clicks. And unfortunately, in this case, KFC Barstool was, I mean, not even unfortunate. It's, I mean, I guess par for the course on this one. KFC Barstool was that place that said, hey, let's make this outlandish claim. Even people forget it. It's social media. People forget it in a week. People forget that they made the claim in a week. And that's the unfortunate part of this, is we have to be better as a place, as a world on social media. And I don't think one podcast can be able to make that change, unfortunately, but you can count on us to try. You can count on us to try to be that side. So yeah, let's hope Tiger is better. Golf is better with Tiger Woods. I'm going to talk just strictly from the sports side. Yeah, golf is better with Tiger Woods. Every sport is better when their athletes are at 100%. If you're a fan of like the Chiefs, I hate to say this, but you want Tom Brady 100%, because you don't want the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to be like, oh, we lost because Tom Brady was hurt. Well, like the Lakers, Anthony Davis was hurt. The Washington Wizards just beat the Lakers the other night. I don't even think about that as a win because Anthony Davis was on the court. So I want the full strength, because I want that I wouldn't say I beat the Lakers with Anthony Davis. It's the same thing. Same thing. Injuries, all that. You want to see Tiger Woods, and it's a better sport with Tiger Woods in it. So more hope, more thoughts, more prayers, more everything out to Tiger Woods. Oh God, here we go. NBA All-Star. Oh, yeah. Nothing better than talking about a game that doesn't matter and who got snubbed from it. That being said, I'm a little upset. I'm not going to lie here. So the team captains were, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Kevin Durant on one side, and it was, who was the other side? Yeah, LeBron on the other side, okay?
Is it LeBron?
So,
yeah,
it was LeBron. So, Brooklyn Nets star James Harden, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, all listed up for reserves. Who are the other ones here? Trying to get the list here. Okay, so the Eastern Conference with Harden was Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum for the Boston Celtics, Julius Randle for the Knicks. Go Julius Randle making a comeback. Chicago Bulls guard Zach Levine, Ben Simmons from the 76ers, listed as a guard, let's be fair, point forward. And then Magic center Nikola Vucevic. From the Western Conference, it looks like it was, lost it. Okay, there we go. Western Conference, it would be Gobert and Mitchell as the reserves, along with Damian Lillard, Paul George, Anthony Davis, Chris Paul, and Zion Williamson. You're going to notice a huge name missing off of this. And it's funny because Phoenix Sun guard Chris Paul is in, but the dude that is getting the most out of Chris Paul, Devin Booker, was completely snubbed until today. Now, he did get in because Anthony Davis's injury allowed another player to get onto the team. So, but this is kind of like, he was kind of like backed in. He wasn't really selected. He was just, hey, there's an injury. You're the next man up. Devin Booker should have been a starter this year. Forget reserve. He should be a starting guard. Bradley Beal was voted in as a starting guard. I agree he's a top 3 point or a top 3 shooting guard. Devin Booker might be number 2 this year with how well he's played. And again, a lot of that goes to Chris Paul. Chris Paul has deserved this spot as well. How does Devin Booker not even get a sniff of the All-Star game before this Anthony Davis injury?
I get really frustrated with All-Star, especially when it comes to the NBA, right? A lot of sports don't necessarily get it right. I think baseball has a lot of issues with this as well. But the NBA, obviously, you have a very small roster that sort of comes out of this. It is such a legacy popularity contest that it drives me nuts. I am not saying that, Chris Paul hasn't been a major important factor for the Phoenix Suns this year. He has been a great contributor to that roster. He is a big part. You could argue the second biggest part as to why the Suns have been doing so well this year. But who's the number one part? It's that guy, Devin Booker. Devin Booker has done a phenomenal job of keeping his production essentially the same, right? Within a couple of decimal points the same, while still getting Chris Paul involved and the rest of his team involved. I've had such a big issue with everyone saying like, well, the Suns didn't really make a leap until Chris Paul came. Did you not watch the bubble? Did you watch the bubble at all? Because the roster, sans Chris Paul, literally went undefeated. And then I think they went undefeated or lost one game in that stretch in the bubble. And then they missed the playoffs. But no one thought, if anyone told you the Suns were going to do what they did going into the bubble, they are literally a liar or they're psychic. I need to go ask them what crypto I should buy or lottery ticket I should play. No one thought the Suns would do what they did. Devin Booker and Devin Booker alone led them last year. Devin Booker's maturation has been incredible. He is the most underrated player in the NBA. If he played in New York or Miami or Los Angeles, he would be a household name and would have been easily voted a starter. But because he plays in a small market, in a team with bad ownership, he's not given an opportunity to be recognized the way he should. And you can make an argument yes and no for the starter. Like, I get that. But you, in my opinion, cannot make an argument for him not being on the roster and then being put on as a reserve. Like, the reserve thing blows my mind. He should have been on the roster without being a reserve.
Can I ask you, and let me bring up, this is a sore spot for me because I throw a lot of hate this kid's way. Why is Ben Simmons so universally loved as a basketball player for a guy that, for the better part, can't shoot? Like, I understand he's averaging 15 points. He's averaging 15 points. I know he's averaging 8 assists, and he's a great rebounder. Don't get me wrong, but he's literally I hate to say this. He can't shoot. I've seen guards sag 5-6 feet off of him in this 76er offense. I've heard them even talk about trying to get Kyle Lowry to run point for this team in a trade because Ben Simmons, while he's really good, if Joel Embiid isn't Superman this year, Ben Simmons is nothing. Let's be very fair right now. If Joel Embiid is not the MVP this year, which he is at when he will be at the halfway point, Ben Simmons doesn't get any of the love because Joel Embiid is allowing Ben Simmons to do what he does. I'm just not sure how Ben Simmons keeps getting. This is his 3rd straight All-Star appearance, and he has not gotten significantly better any of these years. To the point where 76ers fans and basketball analysts, he's always the trade target in the off seasons. He's always the guy that, hey, if we're gonna trade for Bradley Beal, let's get Ben Simmons out of here. Like, how does Ben Simmons keep getting this love?
I think I'm surprised more that the love for Ben Simmons hasn't pivoted, Ben Simmons' rookie year, I think we all agreed, like, wow, okay, we see the talent, we see the flashes. Sophomore year, we're kind of like, okay, where's yes, we're seeing some improvement, but we're still not really seeing you take the jump shot part. I think you can be a very competent and good NBA player if you're not able to be an elite shooter, right? You do not have to be an elite shooter, in my opinion, to be a very good NBA player or even an all-star. You take sort of what happens with most guards traditionally. Most guards that come into the NBA from college are not good shooters. you learn essentially throughout your career, especially at the NBA level, to pick your poison. You get sort of an idea of spacing arenas and figure out how to become a better shooter. Jason Kidd, for example, is one of my favorite examples of. Jason Kidd was probably labeled a good shooter for most of his career. Jason Kidd was not a good shooter until the latter years of his career, which then he became one of the best shooters in his era of the NBA over a 5-year stretch towards the end of his career. I don't think Ben Simmons ever really gets there. I think part of that, again, I've made this argument before on streams. Ben Simmons is, he shoots right-handed now. I can't even remember. What does he shoot? Is he righty or lefty from the end?
Okay. No, I'm pretty sure he was a lefty.
Whatever hand Ben Simmons shoots with, he is not a natural for that hand. If you watch how he picks with the ball, a right-handed shooter, for example, your right hand goes on top, ball dominant, your left hand is sort of the guiding hand. When Ben Simmons, if you look at old footage of him, he twists his hands around and then he's shifting the ball as he shoots his shot. And again, that is what you see from a shooter who is not comfortable with their shot and also has an issue with which hand is ball dominant. So that I think is part of his problem. I don't think the organization is like pushing him to become a shooter. If Ben Simmons just learned how to knock down an 18, 20 footer, I'm not saying he needs to shoot threes on a high clip. But if he can just hit some good mid-range shots, he would be such a major asset to them. And the fact that he hasn't blows my mind.
He could be larger Chris Paul with defense. That's what Chris Paul does.
He'd be Giannis with a better jump shot. Giannis and Ben Simmons are essentially the same style of player. It's just that Giannis is actually a better shooter than Ben Simmons, which is one of the funniest things to think about.
To say Giannis is a better shooter than anybody at this point. No offense to Giannis. Like, Giannis is all world. But Giannis has... Okay, so you're going to bring Giannis up, so let me bring him up. Giannis will not win a championship as the number one star on a basketball team. I'm saying this. And Ben Simmons has the same problem. To be the number one star on a basketball team, I'm not saying you have to be able to shoot a three-pointer, but when the ball's in your hand at the end of the game, you cannot have a defender go, okay, and back up. Ben Simmons, if there's 10 seconds on the clock, any defender in the NBA, if he's sitting on the top of the three-point line, he's just going to go, sure, go for it. Dude, there is bets that go out every day. Check your local betting sites. Over under 1 3-point attempt for Ben Simmons. Like that's the bet. That's the bet. Not made, attempted. You have to put some kind of outside fear as a guard. I'm not saying you have to be able to shoot the three-pointer at like a 40% clip. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to have the threat. Okay? Even as a point forward, the best point forwards in history all were able to shoot. Lamar Odom, Draymond's able to shoot the three when he brings the ball up. They're all able to do something. Giannis is at least a threat. And that's where Giannis can say, okay, you know what? I am going to hit one of these once in a while. You're going to have to guard me at some point. Dude, people don't guard Ben Simmons. And that is a problem with the 76ers. That's why he's always part of the trade talks. That's also, no offense to Giannis again, some offense. I don't think Giannis will ever be the number one that wins a title. I think he's going to have to bring somebody in that can play and have a very large usage number. I think there's somebody who's going to have to match him in usage as a superstar to win a title in Milwaukee. Because now we know he's going to be there for a while after the extension. We talked about that in previous episodes as well. And I'm sorry to say that, Milwaukee Bucks fans, you guys are in for a long, long time. Because that team can shoot threes as much as you want. If they can sag off Giannis outside, that's not going to win you a championship.
Yeah, I think a couple things here for me. The Giannis conversation, I don't want to say that Giannis can't win a title as the number one guy, just because the evolution we've seen of Giannis so far in his career. Giannis is still young. He's 25, 26, I think. I could be wrong in that. But Giannis is still young enough that I think his evolution into being a better jump shooter, especially off the dribble. Set shooting, I think Giannis is like somewhat okay. Sometimes, it's the golf analogy of too much green in between you where he sort of like psychs himself out. The big thing for Giannis is going to be being a jump shooter off the dribble. That is where you become dangerous as a scorer and where no one can really stop you. Look at what Jason Tatum is doing right now. Tatum has his issues. The part that is unstoppable of Jason Tatum's game is the same thing that people love Kobe for. It's the shooting off the dribble, which makes you a dangerous scorer. Anyone can be a set shooter. That's super easy, but shooting off the dribble is a talent that not a lot of people have. The point about Ben Simmons I'll make, that this is some Philly fans will probably hate me for saying this. Ben Simmons is a slightly upgraded version of Michael Carter Williams from his rookie year.
Oh, that's such a good comparison.
Because when you look at what Michael Carter Williams was doing, his rookie year, he was putting up fantastic. Like I think he was in the 12 to 17 points per game, somewhere around there. He had a couple of triple doubles as a rookie. People were like, man, this is a tall point guard who's got vision. His shot isn't quite there. He's got a funky mechanic. He'll figure it out. He never figured it out. And that's why he's been a journeyman. I think he's in Orlando now. I can't even remember. But Ben Simmons, to this point of his career, is a slightly upgraded version of Michael Carter Williams. He is more athletic. I think he has better passing vision than MCW. From a jump shot perspective, they are the same person. So I hope he can get there. But in my opinion, Ben Simmons being an all-star, I don't necessarily agree with this year. I think he got a benefit of the doubt because of how his team's record is.
Mm-hmm.
But if I make the argument of team record, I'm pissed off because Vucevic gets in the all-star game and his team is, hold on, let me pull up the standings. I had it just a second ago. They are 1, 2, 3,
even
4.
with the Wizards.
They are
even with the Wizards, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, Vucevic
to be fair,
and the Magic are
Vucevic
from
is
the
having
bottom.
a fantastic year, by the way. Vucevic is having a fantastic year, but
Sure.
you're right.
They're at the bottom, and my argument is Sabonis should be above him. Sabonis should be above both of them. Domantas Sabonis is having
100%.
a fantastic year, and he is leading that team as the fourth best team in the Eastern Conference. Yes, it's the Eastern Conference, but it's Philly, it's Brooklyn, it's Milwaukee, and then it's Indiana right now. That dude needs some love. He has killed it. He had a great year last year. Maybe you could argue he could have got snubbed. That'd have been okay. But this year, you have got to reward that dude for what he's doing in Indiana.
Well, he's also lost, he's lost a lot of people who played next to him after that big trade. Remember, he was still in Indiana after all of those other players bounced around him in the big Houston, New Jersey, Brooklyn trade. So credit to him playing with new players and still getting better. To that credit, like I said, the same thing with people that have been snubbed, like Simmons, PER wise, Giannis's PER is up 5 this year over his career number. Simmons is the same. Sabonis's PER is up 3 this year. In a rough year for I hate like PER. That way that team is built. I know you don't like PER, but that doesn't mean it's not valid. Like Sabonis, let me give you this. Sabonis this year is averaging, you ready for this? 21.5 points a game. That's up 3 points a game. He's shooting 3-pointers at a 35% clip after shooting 25% last year. He's getting about 3 off a game. Like he's actually playing way better this year than he has in years past. Plus, his assist numbers are going up. Last year during the bubble, he averaged about 5 assists a game. He's at 5.7 at this point. He's averaging over a steal a game. He's almost at a full block a game. Like Sabonis is doing everything. You know what? I'm gonna say it. Sabonis is doing everything that Ben Simmons was supposed to do.
Woof. I hate when people make PER ratings. I hear you.
Yeah.
It's just Robert Williams, for example. This is why I hate PER, because whenever there's valid arguments on PER, there's also going to be the anomaly of like Robert Williams right now. Robert Williams is ahead in PER over Anthony Davis, James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kyrie Irving, Paul George, LeBron James, Trae Young, Jimmy Butler. And it's insane. And you even have Enes Kanter. Kanter is ranked higher than Sabonis, Brandon Ingram, Chris Paul, Thad Young. Bobby Portis is ranked higher than Mike Conley right now. Like there's just so many issues I have with PER, but I get it. There are some valid reasons for it.
The best player to never make an all-star game, Mike Conley, is that the same guy we're talking about?
we need to do an episode on him one day, just about him being in the Western Conference his entire career has literally kept him from being an all-star, and he's deserved it at least a couple of times.
He is probably as close to Chris Paul as anybody else is. You put Mike Conley on any basketball team and he makes all 4 of the other starters and probably 3 of the bench players better. I don't know of any team that he's ever gone on that the team has not been better because of it. And you're absolutely right. At some point, the man needs to make an all-star game just as like a lifetime achievement award for what he has done in the league.
For sure. And Utah struggled a little bit when they first acquired him. Like I think it was like a month and a half where people were like, yo, this isn't working. Conley's kind of struggling. And then I think he had an injury too. He was sort of battling. But I think when you look at them now, Utah is, I would say, the most complete basketball team on the planet. Like 100%. I had to say top to bottom, I go Utah every single time.
And Conley's leading that team in assists, and really that team is better, way better because of it. Mitchell's playing better. Gobert is playing better offensively because of Mike Conley. He makes that entire team better. He gels that team. And look at the two teams we're talking about the most in the Western Conference this year as being more complete and better teams, and they're showing up in the standings because of it. Utah because of Mike Conley, and then Phoenix because of Chris Paul. Those two teams have leapfrogged Denver, Portland, all of these other squads, and are playing better. Dude, Utah's leaped everybody. Utah's on top of the league by 3 games right now as we record this. They're 9-1 in their last 10. Phoenix is 9-1 in their last 10 too. Like that is the effect of having a ball first point guard. Like a guy that knows his role. He can score if he needs to, but his role is to make sure the entire team is better, to be the coach on the floor. And Conley and Chris Paul don't get enough love for that, especially Mike Conley. So when this team wins a title later this year, let us know about how Mike Conley shouldn't be respected as one of the best point guards in the game.
Amen. Speaking. And I will say one last little piece of love I would love to give out there is Zach Levine. I am so hyped for Zach Levine to get an all-star nod this year. That dude has battled through adversity. He's battled through traumatic knee injuries. And to see him where he is now and seeing the interviews he gives and how like humble he is and respectful that dude is, I'm excited for him. I know he's not everyone's type of player because of sort of his play style, but man, I love Zach Levine and what he does, and I'm happy to see him get a nod this year.
I hate his play style. I've hated him as a player since he came in the league until I started seeing interviews. He literally made me fall in love with him as a basketball player with his interviews. Dude, it is again, as a lifelong Spurs fan and having that mentality, dude, Levine exudes that. He's all about everybody else on the team. He's all about his coaching. He's all about the fans. You never hear Zach Levine go, "Well, I really should have, I should have been the star here. I should have had 30 points tonight." Like, it's always about how he can make everybody else better. And that's so refreshing to hear these days, is to hear something like that. So speaking of players that make everybody else better, the infinite one, Thanos himself, Tom Brady, is reportedly working on an extension. You heard me right when I say this, right? An extension with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to have him play even longer. Now, before he came in to Tampa Bay, he talked about, hey, maybe we're going to play until we're like 45. That's about right. Now he's saying he can play past 45. You know what? I'm not going to be Max Kellerman here. He probably can. I'm going to say he can play till 50. He can Joe Namath whatever he wants. I don't care. He's set to earn $25 million next season. They're looking to make an extension, maybe bring that number down a little bit while getting maybe some money on the back end. They've got a good group of players they have to re-sign, including, but not limited to, Chris Godwin, Levante David, Shaq Barrett, Gronkowski, that's Tom's buddy, Antonio Brown, who probably isn't coming back, and another key down there, Leonard Fournette. All of those players are on or going to free agency. So an extension might actually help this team with salary cap. But let's just talk about Tom Brady for a second. I mean, how long do you want him playing with the Buccaneers? He has not slowed down. He literally just won a title with a very good team, but he was the Super Bowl MVP in the process. If you're the Buccaneers, do you extend him?
I'm vomiting. I'm honestly vomiting right now.
Because you know the answer.
I respect Tom Brady. I know. I respect Tom Brady, and I know that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. I love Tom Brady's like personality and how he's sort of petty and does all these little digs at people and stuff. Because I can relate to that, right? I'm a petty person. I like doing some of those things sometimes. I just want him out of the league already. Okay, Tom, you've won 7 rings. What else do you have? You want to win 8? You want to win 9? I get it. Go play Madden. You probably don't want to, but go play Madden. Okay, the rest of us are forced to do that. I just want a new era. You know what this reminds me of? This is why I stopped watching wrestling. Because when I was watching wrestling had like a golden era, the attitude era, like all that stuff.
We're not taking swings. We're not taking swings at wrestling right now, okay, man? Like that's my love. That's my love.
No, I'm making a valid concern here. Also, I have a cupcake I never showed you, but I have a cupcake here with sprinkles that my daughter made me. Anyways, My issue with wrestling for the longest time is that we had a golden era of wrestling, and then the problem became the wrestling really struggled to sort of create those like new personalities that like the casuals. I was definitely a wrestling casual. The casuals sort of latch on to, right? The people that the hardcore audience could always latch on to, but they started to then just keep using the older dudes that were in there and bring back a lot of the older characters. And even now, like you're still seeing a lot of the older characters pop up to sort of like save it or do these things, these little like tangible moments to bring it back. I can't help but feel like Tom Brady is that right now. I get it, Tom Brady, you've had a remarkable career, but there's something great about letting him ride off in the sunset and just remembering him and not having to watch him every Sunday and watching someone else become that new thing. Because part of the argument in sports that I love is like, Michael Jordan retired, and then it's like, oh man, is Kobe Bryant going to be the next Michael Jordan? And then LeBron comes in, is LeBron going to be the next Michael Jordan? I love that argument of who's got next and sort of the arguments that come around that. We don't get to have that when the old man is still playing. Retire.
So, and I agree. I don't agree with you. I think Tom Brady, you just let him play. Let him play. Dude, like I said, I'm with you. When John Elway went out with the Broncos, I think that's the last time somebody went really out on top. Unless I think I'm missing
Bettis.
one. Yeah, well, Bettis didn't really go on top. Let's be fair. He was a shell of his former self during that year. Don't talk to me.
Jerome Bettis. I'm sorry.
Right, he won a Super Bowl in his hometown, but he wasn't the bust that year. Come on, he was carried to a Super Bowl that year. Anyway, Ravens, talk to me about the Ravens. So Des Bryant apparently feels the same way you do. Don't worry, we feel the same way about you, Des. Enjoy the next 2 years. That you're playing when you weren't playing for the last 2 years. Anyway, I think Tom Brady, they extend him again, especially if this can affect the cap this year to get maybe another run. Take advantage of that year. Any kind of deal is going to be mostly based on bonus, I think, anyway. So the money he's going to get is going to be, he's going to get this guaranteed money. And if they cut him, it's going to be it'll be much more cap friendlier for the Buccaneers. Brady did this multiple times in New England. He's a team guy. He wants the team to be better. He knows the team has to be good around him. This is an easy thing for them to do. He's going to get extended. And then if he retires, the money goes away anyway. So speaking of being extended, though, long-term deal for Dak Prescott needs to be on the table by March 9th. If it's not on the table by March 9th, they will franchise tag Dak Prescott for the second and final year. Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys will be franchise tagged for $37.7 million for next football season. If he gets franchise tagged again, what's the future for Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys?
It's not in Dallas if he gets franchised. I can't imagine Dak Prescott, after everything he's done, after being the mouthpiece for Jerry Jones and saying some things that I think he maybe regrets now. I won't touch on those subjects, but the things that I'm sure that Dak regrets saying publicly now and going to bat for that organization and that leadership, Dak has to feel slighted. You know, Dak did the thing of like, we've all worked at a place or a job where they're like, hey, go do this, go do that. We'll take care of you. And then he went, he did this, he did that. He did everything they said he did. And then he did more. And they're like, we don't think you're worth what you're asking, though. Right. And there's nothing worse than an employee, a player, whatever you want to classify it as, to know a value, to see people around you getting paid that value or similar value. People that are getting paid similarly who are not having the same level of success you are. And for you then to be told, can't quite commit that much to you, or maybe that's a year too long. I get it. The Cowboys will put people in the seats no matter what. The one thing that will hurt the Cowboys, though, is sustained failure. And they are not too far from having sustained failure. They have no better option than Dak Prescott right now. If Dak Prescott is not their quarterback, Ben DiNucci, you went to James Madison University, and I love you for that. You're not the future of that franchise. Andy Dalton, we saw everyone say Andy Dalton is going to, be a nice stopgap for them. He's going to do X and Y. No, he did not. Okay. The Red Rocket didn't really do much for them at all. So now you have the opportunity of, you either have Dak Prescott, you can't go to Dalton, you can't go to DiNucci. You now have to go find someone in the free agency market. Your best options are going to be Marcus Mariota, maybe a trade for Sam Darnold. You're definitely not getting Deshaun Watson. You don't have trade capital to really make a play for a lot of these quarterbacks as well. Sign Dak Prescott. He's your best option. And honestly, even though I was sort of not high on him at some parts last year and the year prior, Dak Prescott has proven himself. He deserves the money. He's got to get it now.
I am 9 times out of 10 on the side of teams like the New England Patriots, teams that don't give in to emotional value of players. They say, hey, look, you've had your time here. This is a business. We're making a business decision. In the case of the Dallas Cowboys, this is the 1 out of 10. This dude went to bat for your team publicly multiple times. This dude went to bat for probably one of the most toxic owners in the NFL, known publicly as being so. And Dak Prescott went to bat for this dude. He went to bat for his coach. He went to bat for the front office. He went to bat for the entire Cowboys organization. And then he got franchise tagged. And then he got hurt. You franchise tag this dude for a second year, and he's walking away from the organization after next year. He's signing a long-term deal, and he's going to have one goal in his mind, and that is shoving his foot so far down Jerry Jones's throat every single year after that. Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. He is a team, he's a quarterback that with a team around him, especially in the NFC East, the way it is right now, they win that division year in and year out. The Giants aren't there yet and won't be there next year. The Washington football team, sans a Deshaun Watson trade, by the way, we'll talk about that in 1 second too. And the Philadelphia Eagles are in shambles. They've got Jalen Hurts, who honestly is not the future of that organization either. Okay, the only reason they have Jalen Hurts and they're going with him is because Carson Wentz whined his way out of the team. Yes, he whined, by the way. Carson Wentz, you're a crybaby. Deal with it. Sign your contract and get on with it. So Dak Prescott, you sign Dak Prescott to a long-term deal. He is your quarterback. He will take you to multiple playoff runs. He is a quarterback that can win the Super Bowl for you with a team around him. And if you're Jerry Jones, do something you haven't done in your entire ownership of the Cowboys. Shut your mouth. Sit back in the front office and let the dude that stood up for your organization be the face that he was destined to be. Okay? Sit your old ass back up in the booth, all right? Maybe you sit next to Robert Kraft while you're there. You know, I'm sure you all know where the fun times are after the game. Keep your mouth shut and let your dude be your dude, all right? Sign a man long-term. You franchise tag him, which we all know is going to happen. We all know what's going to happen. He's getting franchise tag March 9th. That dude's walking away from your organization, and good for him.
I don't blame you. I think that has to be the case. Again, you know, I talked about being petty earlier. We were talking about Tom Brady. I would love nothing more if the Deshaun Watson, Chase Young thing doesn't happen. I would love nothing more than to see in Washington Dak Prescott and then leading that football team to a playoff run and beating Dallas. I would love nothing more than
Washington
see that.
With Dak Prescott wins, like I said, without the Watson trade. So we're talking Chase Young, all of their young players there on defense. Dak Prescott on that team, they're perennial NFC East champions and probably a Super Bowl champion at some point because they've got a very good young receiving core. They've got a pretty good offensive line and they've got a dominant defense. That being said, let me throw a curveball at you real quick. Chase Young, one other young defensive talent player, 3 first-round picks. You get Deshaun Watson back. Do you make that trade today?
If you're Washington, I think you have to. Look, I don't know if it was you or someone else on Twitter that made this argument. If you're getting the number 1 overall pick in a draft, it might have been you, I can't remember, but if you're getting the number 1 overall pick in a draft and you have a incredible once-in-a-generation defensive lineman, or you have a once-in-a-generation talented quarterback, which one do you take? If you have a position of need for both, you take the quarterback every single time. I'm 100% in line with that thought. You get Deshaun Watson at whatever cost, and you make it happen. They need him. He's proven he's a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. Washington needs that guy. Chase Young is great. You'll find another defensive end. You will not find another Deshaun Watson for a long time.
Name me one pass rusher that's won a Super Bowl because he was a pass rusher. I challenge anyone that listens to this podcast that tells me that one pass rusher won a Super Bowl by himself. Now, tell me how many quarterbacks carried a team through. At this point, you need an entire defense. Like, you're going to tell me that Trent Dilfer managed a game. Yeah, but that was Ray Lewis and multiple defenders on that team. Even the 85 Bears, again, an entire defense. One quarterback can carry you to 12 wins. Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson, anybody? Like, you do not win Super Bowls unless you have the number one defense and at least a good running game, okay? And a game manager. So you still have an experienced, good quarterback. Deshaun Watson is worth Chase Young. Deshaun Watson is worth Khalil Mack. Deshaun Watson is, you name him. Aaron Donald, I'm trading for Deshaun Watson. You name me any defensive player in the league, add 3 first-round picks, I'm sending Deshaun Watson gone. And my personal feeling is he ends up with the Panthers in a deal where Bridgewater goes back, because I think the Texans want a quarterback back in the deal. I would not be surprised if Christian McCaffrey is in that deal too. I know that name has been popped up a little bit because, no offense, again, another thing, top three running back. Okay. What are you doing for me? Top 3 running back. I'll put Mike Davis in there if I've got Deshaun Watson, a top 5. I think Deshaun Watson's a top 3 quarterback. Let's take my opinion out of it. He's at least a top 5 quarterback. Okay. A top 5 quarterback wins you a Super Bowl, the number 1 defensive player in the world. You could reincarnate any defensive player in the world you've ever wanted. Does not win you a Super Bowl. You make that deal in a heartbeat. Nick Bosa, 49ers, Nick Bosa, you're gone too. You're out too. Take yourself down to Houston, have your fun, and watch Deshaun Watson lead that team to victory, that 49er team to victory.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And if there's one thing, I forgot about the McCaffrey piece, and if there's one thing the Texans owner would love, it's probably a guy that looks like Christian McCaffrey, as his running back. So
talk, sure they'd love that. Preach it. No, don't you leave it alone. The Texans organization is trash. It's been trash, and ever since Bill O'Brien left, now everyone knows it's trash. Good for them. Good for them to be exposed like that. Absolutely. Trade Deshaun Watson. You deserve I'm glad Deshaun Watson stood up to them, by the way. I'm so glad that Deshaun Watson stood up to them and is putting his foot in the ground. You know what? Screw all of them. I hope the Texans don't win for the next 20 years. That being said, let's move on to some brighter times. Let's quick hit sports gaming. Nothing huge in sports gaming this week. A lot of awesome stuff going on. First off, Madden announced this week that they were going to the EA Vault on March 2nd, which means that if you ready for this? Not only EA Vault on the PlayStation side, by the way, I did get this clarified. There is currently no EA Play on PlayStation 5. There's no EA Play app. So if you have EA Play, because it got, don't think about the other side of this. Think about the side that you stand, or if you look at my beautiful jersey from last night from stream, well, the side I stand now. So there is no EA Play app currently on PlayStation 5. So if you have a PlayStation 5, this isn't going to affect you. But it is going to the EA Play Vault for PlayStation 4. And if you have Xbox Game Pass, because EA Play has been rolled into Game Pass into one charge, you have access to the EA Play Vault. So another great way that Xbox Game Pass pays off for Xbox gamers. Both versions, from what I understand, the last gen version and the next gen version of Madden will be available via Xbox Game Pass and EA Play on March 2nd.
It's a W. I'm telling you, Xbox Game Pass is I've said it before, I'll say it again, is the single best value out there for a gamer. Like, especially if you're a PC gamer too, the Ultimate Game Pass, I think is what it's called. Yeah. It's like $15 a month. It is insane value when you think about what you're getting across your console, across your PC, the titles you can essentially play that maybe you missed out on. When games roll into the vault like this for EA, you can go on your Xbox system and go get it. Look, if you're a gamer, I get that people love PlayStation. PlayStation has fantastic games. They do great things. But if you have a gaming PC, even a mid-tier one, and you have an Xbox Series S, as in Sam, that is some of the best experiences you can have with a Game Pass. You really don't really need to buy a ton of games. You're going to have so much you can play each and every month. You don't really need to buy too many things.
Absolutely. And then also, just a rumor going around since we're talking about Game Pass, there is a rumor that's been circling for the last month that Ubisoft is looking to get into more console stuff because they're starting cross progression with Ubisoft Connect. By the way, Ubisoft Connect, fantastic application. If you do not have it on your Xbox or PlayStation, get it. It enables cross progress for a lot of games. So Ubisoft Connect, the rumor is that Ubisoft wants to bring Ubi Plus to the Xbox Game Pass. Ubi Plus on PC is one of those where every single Ubisoft game with its deluxe edition is involved in a $15 a month charge. For me, that's great. As a looter shooter fan, Ubisoft is pretty much known as the looter shooter home for most of the places. That if that happens, dude, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is a must. So keep your eyes and ears open for that, especially with what's coming out soon. Watchdog Legion has their multiplayer update soon, so very interested in that early March. Speaking of March, Out of the Park Baseball, our friends over there, Rich Grisham, Snaggle, all you boys, they released their next version, Out of the Park 22, on March 26th. Some big upgrades. They haven't gone into too many details. Definitely keeping my eye on it as a franchise fan. Obviously, there's a difference between Tech Sim and like AAA franchise. But if you're looking for Tech Sim, they have all of the rosters all the way back to forever. I believe they have the Negro Leagues in there, like all of those rosters up to date with like faces up to date and everything. There's nothing better than Out of the Park. So release on March 26th. Going to be out. I think this is also key. Going to be out almost a month before MLB. So people kind of foaming at the mouth for a baseball experience, even a Tech Sim one. If you're into that, like Out of the Park will be ready to go.
Agreed. I think one thing for Out of the Park too, for people that maybe are unfamiliar with it, if you're a huge baseball fan, you're ever looking for more of a passive experience too, you can obviously make it an immersive experience at the same time. But if you're ever sort of wanting something that you can be involved in, a franchise mode, but also be multitasking and doing something else, Out of the Park is a fantastic option for that. Sort of watching the games go by and sort of letting it play through, and deciding to plop someone in or out of the roster, building these crazy rosters, importing players through and out. There, to Mill's point, so many possibilities. The rosters go back. I mean, I've seen people do like early 1900s rosters, which is like, what? How do you even know who's playing back then? But There are so many cool things that they have there. It's 100% worth checking out. And the people that are working on that game are fantastic. I had a chance to meet them. It was a couple years back, probably now at PAX, in person. Talked to a lot of them online, but great group of guys and people that are working on that game. And it's such an underrated gem each year.
You're going to mention who else you met at that PAX? Like you didn't meet him, you didn't meet the guy, but like, you knew him, but you met up with him at the same time? Like in the same bar?
You took the last wing that I wanted, so no, I'm not going to mention that.
What? The wings were good. All right, listen, that's a fat joke, okay? That's an attack against my. I have a thing with food, okay? I just need to eat it. It's not my fault.
Do too.
I just like that you casually mentioned that you met all the guys from OOTP at a meeting that I was at, first, mind you, outside of Fenway, in the shadow of Fenway. And you and I spoke and like hung out during this entire meeting, and I get slighted for Rich and all those guys over there. It's upsetting. It's upsetting.
I literally talk to you every Wednesday night, and I have to deal with your dumb DMs every single week. And you ate the last wing that I wanted.
Dumb DMs?
Yeah.
Dude, listen, I'm an entertainer. Yeah. Listen, you know what? Just get out of here. I got more baseball talk here. I know baseball's not your strong suit, so just sit back and let the master carry. Okay, Super Mega Baseball 3 is releasing a career stats patch. I've talked about Super Mega Baseball 3 having a fantastic franchise mode, different take on franchise. Has a consistent salary cap to where if you trade somebody, you have to get money evenly back and stay under that. You grow connections to a lot of these players. Another way to grow a great connection is to add career stats in. So now multiple years, you'll be able to see players and how they've performed as they grow. I'm gonna say as grow old, because they actually do grow old game. Like they literally change looks in game. This is a big thing again for Super Mega Baseball just killing the franchise game as it always has, man.
I wish, not just MLB The Show to take note from them in some areas, but I wish more sports titles. Again, we talk about NBA 2K's franchise mode. My NBA is probably one of the most in-depth and complete ones, but I'm looking at Madden. I'm looking at a lot of companies saying, like, if you just look at what a little tiny studio like they are doing, why can't we have some things like that? Take some inspo from them and make some things happen to your franchise mode. We'd love you for it.
And again, you guys think career stats is like a small update, right? It's not. It's a huge undertaking for that amount of stats to not only carry through and affect those players as they go, because the entire Mojo system is based on your performance year to year. So this is actually going to affect all that too. So props out to those guys and girls over at Super Mega Baseball. Last for the night though, Notre Dame. It's starting. College football, EA Sports College Football is announced, and immediately after, Notre Dame says, well, that's really nice, but until the whole player likeness situation is figured out, Notre Dame's not going to be in that game. Talk to me about Notre Dame's importance to being in college football.
No one cares about Notre Dame. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you. Literally no one cares about Notre Dame. Notre Dame acts like they are, the coup de grace, one of the best of the best. They were super relevant, 80s and 90s, cool. But now people don't really look at Notre Dame like that anymore. I think the interesting thing, though, this doesn't shut the door on them being involved in college football, whatever year it essentially is that it comes out. They can still do sort of an agreement similar to what USC does. USC is also not sort of in that group of licensing, but USC, as we saw, was in Madden 21 and Face of the Franchise mode. Not an incredible mode to play, but Face of the Franchise mode lets you play as USC as one of your collegiate options. So the chance of them still being in the game is okay. But if I'm a school, right, if I'm literally recruiting some incoming freshmen coming into my school, I am 100% bringing this up if a kid has Notre Dame on their, mind and saying, like, look, we're going to be in EA's college football title. Notre Dame, though, you might miss out on the chance to play as yourself, or, do you really want to go there and miss out on that opportunity? Like, name and likeness could be figured out by then. I know there's like some hairy stuff, but I'm 100% using that as a pitch when I'm talking to these kids.
I'm going to go a different way with this. And I'm going to side with Notre Dame on this one, specifically because this is Notre Dame sticking up for their players to an extent. Notre Dame is saying, hey, look, this player likeness thing is very important to us. It's very important to the players. It is important that the players get paid for their likeness. And let's be very fair. EA Sports College Football comes out. They're going to find a way, whether it be community driven or elsewise, to have player likenesses in the game. Like you said, in 2-3 years, it probably is solved anyway. Let's say it's not. They're not releasing a college football game without finding some way for somebody to enter rosters in, even if we have to, ship USB drives around like we used to. Okay.
Yeah.
Notre Dame is standing up and saying, listen, you figure out a way, or everybody figures out a way to pay the players, or we're not supporting the product. In this case, normally I'm with you. I agree. Notre Dame is very self-serving. They think way higher of themselves than they are in where they are right now to where they used to be. They still think they're top of the mountain. They're not. But in this case, to have that independence and stand up and say, hey, look, we side with the players on this. They deserve to be compensated for their likeness. That needs to be solved first. I give them props. I give them props for at least taking that stance in this, where they could be making, as you said, they could be doing a huge problem here with not only recruiting, but also like making money. Like people don't recognize Notre Dame in the game. So they're like, oh, okay, so we'll just buy other college gear that I can make up with my players.
Yeah, I hear you on that 100%. I don't buy that Notre Dame did it for, the standing up for their players. I buy that Notre Dame did this from a financial perspective to their university. Because again, I don't think Brian Kelly, who came out with this like, oh, we're doing it for the players, player likeness. I don't buy it at all. Brian Kelly also has never cared about the well-being of a player or especially someone sitting on top of a crane filming for his university. So Brian Kelly is the last person I want to hear talk about player safety or personnel safety because someone unfortunately died on his watch.
Right.
My thing though with Notre Dame has always been a university that cares about, again, your point, they're self-serving, they're very, like most universities caring about themselves. This to me, when I saw that announcement, was more of they had a conversation. EA's dollar offer probably didn't match what Notre Dame essentially wanted. Notre Dame balked at and said, we're worth X value. And EA's like, nah, you're not. And it's just a business thing where they essentially walked away from those sides. I think you're right. I think to a level, there is something about player likeness in here. And I want to make sure the players are compensated. With the way things are progressing, I think within, again, that 2 to 3 year window, they're 100% is compensation. Whether Notre Dame is in the game or not, people will find a way to make a version of Notre Dame, to make a version of these players. So it's like it's just a level of what level of difficulty they want it to essentially be to create them, in my opinion. But I'm on board. I want players who 100% get paid. And I hope by the time the college football 20 whatever comes out, that players are paid, they are compensated to a degree. I don't want to be the person that has to figure that out because that's a super complicated thing they're going to have to figure out. But I absolutely hope they can profit on their own name and likeness.
I also don't think Notre Dame's the last one. I think Notre Dame's the start of the door. I think we're going to see multiple other, for the reasons you gave, not just because people are standing up for player likeness. I think that other schools are going to be like, hey, why aren't you paying us a little bit more to be in this game? Especially if they start going to this Power 5 that everyone talks about. I think that's going to really push the screws in on EA to have to pay for colleges to be in the game. So look forward to that. But that's a conversation for another week. Wrap us up, Mr. GGB.
Yeah, I just hope, last thing on that, I just hope that EA is building some fantastic customization tools regardless, because I think we're going to need them, whether it's from a player standpoint or a university standpoint or conference standpoint. Like, I got a feeling we're going to need it. But Mills, great episode. We had a lot today outside of your technical issues where you couldn't figure out how to use your headphones in the beginning. It is what it is. Obviously, we hope Tiger Woods, keep you in our thoughts and prayers. Hope you get better. Hope again he gets to some point of just being, able to be happy with whatever he chooses to do, whether it's trying to compete again or just spending time with his kids or just being sort of, a figure that we're able to see on television here and there or whatever. Just hope that he's in a good spot. Domantas Sabonis, we feel bad for you. I believe that maybe something will happen, you'll be able to play. But if not, you're still a great player. Go check out again Madden and EA Vault.
Real quick, Domantas Sabonis, at least he doesn't have to spend an entire All-Star day together with everybody else in the league, bringing all of their attempts at COVID in one spot for an entire day. Conversation for another day, but NBA, you're screwing up on this one, man. That All-Star game is not that important.
Yeah, good luck getting 72 games in the NBA season this year. Literally not going to happen. But great episode. Again, if you have not given us a 5-star rating, please make sure you do. We'll shout you out like we shout out the 3 little sausage finger Mervins. I mean, the wonderful people that left our 5-star reviews today. Definitely appreciate that. My name is Good Game Bro. The man over there with the beanie is Mills. Catch you on the next one. Take care.
Ciao.